Everybody, welcome back to Modern with Randy. I am Randy. As always, if you like what you're seeing, like what I'm doing, go ahead and leave a like on the video, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up with everything I'm doing. And today, I thought I'd go through with the new Through the Breach Eldrazi deck that's been running around Modern, putting up some results, as well as doing just kind of being a menace as a whole with its Through the Breach plan here. So let's start off with breaking down the mana base real quick. As you'll notice, they get to run, 8 different soul lands essentially. Here we have Ugin's Labyrinth as well as Eldrazi Temple. To go along with Ugin's Labyrinth, you notice that we're running 4 Always Dust and 4 Devourer of Destiny, basically to help us hit the Ugin's Labyrinth, as well as, of course, Ulamog and Emrakul here for the Through the Breach plan. Then we have, Eldrazi Temple. We have a little bit of smaller Eldrazi's here in the main deck and in the sideboard, as well as it helps with our Kozilek's Command, since that is a tribal, or kindred is what they're calling it now instead of tribal. They've done away with tribal for whatever reason and switched it to kindred, but it is essentially a tribal spell of Eldrazi, so it helps us cast that as well. And then otherwise we're just running, Boseiju, 2 forests, Grove of the Burn Willows, not worlds, and Carprusian Forest here as our red sources, as well as they add Colorless. And then we also have 1 Keswick Wolf Run to help us kind of push through damage, or have to hard cast, or get through with our Sowing Mycospawn, Devour Destiny, things like that. It's really being able to give, this guy trample, things like that. And then 1 Cavern of Souls that we have to hard cast, if we have to hard cast, and a Cavern of, or Gemstone Cavern, sorry. A Gemstone Cavern, because who doesn't like having 3 mana on turn 1 instead of 2 mana. And then we have 4 Ancient Stirring, because obviously it gets to hit every card in our deck besides Through the Breach. 4 Talisman here, again, just another way to play through like Blood Moon, things like that, where it adds a green or red that's not affected by those cards. Then we're playing 4 Sowing Mycospawn. It is a 4 mana 3/3 Devoid. So when you cast this spell, you get to search your library for a land card and put it on the battlefield and shuffle. So it helps us mana ramp, helps us fix our colors, helps us do whatever we need to do. Excuse me, and then if it was kicked, we get to exile a target land as well when you cast the spell, notably. So, being able to cast this spell kicked, being able to exile our opponent's lands, slow them down while we keep speeding up, obviously is a great way to interact with our opponent and slow them down. We're playing 4 One Rings, because obviously we're playing colorless mana. We can potentially play this on turn 2 as well, with double Ugin's Labyrinth, or going Ugin's Labyrinth into Talisman, and then I'll still regular land on turn 2. So great way to just be able to draw our cards, make sure we hit our Through the Breach combo cards here. Essentially, playing 4 Kozilek's Command basically just lets us mana ramp, lets us scry and draw a card, lets us get rid of problematic creatures, or even it gives us Graveyard Hate in game 1 against the against Living End. I don't know why I couldn't think of Living End, Jesus. Against Living End, or, helping us, hit that Flames if the game's going long. And then, of course, like I said, we're playing Always Dust and Devourer of Destiny. Always Dust is really just here as a way to help turn on Ugin's Labyrinth. Besides that, it is obviously a good spell. If, we are hard casting it, we can wipe the board. All our stuff is colorless or devoid, so we don't have to worry about losing anything, and we only get, pure profit. It's a one-sided board wipe. Then we are playing Devourer of Destiny as a 2-fold here. Well, I guess 3-fold really. So, first one being it's 7 mana, we can put underneath Ugin's Labyrinth. Second one being it is a castable spell at 7 mana, which sounds weird to say, but with all our soul lands, things like that, this is a castable spell. And the third reason why we're playing it is because you may reveal this card from your opening hand. If you do, at the beginning of your first upkeep, look at the top 4 cards of your library, put one of those cards back on top, and the rest in the exile. So it lets us helps us dig for our Ugin's Labyrinths, our Through the Breaches, whatever we're looking for on turn 1 to make our hand perfect, as well as it is a castable spell, and also triggers or helps us trigger Ugin's Labyrinth to be able to imprint underneath it. So, just multiple reasons why we're playing this spell. Card's been amazing. Basically, any deck that's playing Eldrazi, playing Tron, you're going to see this as a 4 of. Card is amazingly good. And then, of course, we're playing Through the Breach. So for anyone who hasn't been around before, or wasn't watching this deck get played in a very different version back in like 2016, 2017 era, where it was blue-red playing as a control deck with ways to discard our Emrakul so we didn't have to worry about them running in our hands. we have Through the Breach here, which is an instant 5 mana, 4 in a red. You may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That creature gains haste, then sacrifice that creature at the beginning of the next end step. So, what are we trying to haste in? Well, the first one being obviously Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, the original Emrakul, if you will. The 15 for 15 has a bunch of attacks. What really matters is that she has flying, she has protection from spells that are 1 or more colors, and she has Annihilator 6. And also whenever she's put in the graveyard for new order, she shuffles that graveyard into the owner's library. But so Annihilator 6, 15 power, flying, and protection from colors. Pretty big. Pretty great to just do this on turn 3. Being able to Annihilate 6 will probably just put your opponent out of the game, right? Because they're not going to have 6 permanents to... They're going to have 6 other permanents besides their lands that are also counted in that. So you're just going to essentially wrath their board, get rid of their lands, get rid of any of their creatures. They're going to take 15 damage, which might just kill them as well, because it depends on how many times they've, fetch shocked, things like that. So, just kind of locking them out of the game immediately. The other one here is Ulamog the Defiler. He is a 10 mana creature, 7/7. Notably, 10 mana is unironically castable for this deck. When you cast this spell, target opponent exiles a half of their library, rounded up. He has a ward of you have to sacrifice 2 permanents, and then when he enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on him equal to the degree of mana value among cards in exile. So notably, we're gonna cast. He's gonna exile their graveyard or exile their half their deck. So whatever the highest cost there is, which will probably be like 5 max. But notably, if we have Ugin's Labyrinth out and we have a Devour underneath there, or an All Is Dust, or whatever, he'll enter in with 7 counters on. So you're thinking, okay, yeah, it's a 14/14, that doesn't matter, right? Well, Ulamog has Annihilator X, where X is the number of counters on it. So it is kind of a big deal here, where we get to essentially have Annihilator 7 or maybe even bigger on it, to where you're just kind of wiping your opponent's board state completely. They're not going to have lands, they're not going to have blockers, and they're going to take 14 damage or whatever the case may be. So deck is here to essentially one-shot people, right? Like, Through the Breach is not killing them, but it's killing them. 15 damage doesn't kill you when you start at 20 life total, but 15 damage on turn 3, and also not having any lands now, and resetting back to turn 1 on lands, is basically a death sentence. Overall, this deck has been putting up a lot of good numbers. I know I had a friend who was playing this. He had a different build of it overall. He just went to the 5Ks that Apex in Ohio does. He was able to top 16 day 1, and day 2 they did another 5K. He was able to top 8 on that one. And the deck has just been looking ridiculously strong. It plays through counter magic a lot better than you would think it would. It's just kind of resilient, and with the Through the Breaches here, just kind of makes your opponent always have to have it, and like that's tough to do in this meta right now, where you have to always have all these answers all the time. And this deck kind of just gets to squeak through there and essentially play a fair game or an unfair game depending on what their draw looks like. And then moving on with their sideboard here. Now obviously the sideboards have changed a lot. There's a bunch of different sideboards running around for this deck. I know I've seen some playing 4 Trinispheres in the sideboard. This one was only playing 2 that I had stolen essentially. But so eventually they're playing 2 Trinispheres as just lock piece, hate pieces against people. And the smaller decks running around, Boros Energy, things like that. Just being able to make them slower, not being able to put pressure on you, things like that. Then we have Soulless Jailer here, basically just to stop the graveyard shenanigans, along with the like Libigan, things like that. Same thing with our Bojuka Bog here, just as a one of, because we can go grab it with our Sowing Mycospawn. So we can play Sowing Mycospawn as early as like turn 2. So being able just to have a turn 2 Bojuka Bog, great. Thought-Knot Seer is here for like the control matchups and like the slower matchups, things like that, where you need some little interaction, things like that. This member here is definitely a thing. There's definitely here just for the Nadia matchup. I will say I like what my friend was doing a lot more. He was playing Stonebrain in the sideboard. He was playing 4 of them. You are able to essentially activate that on turn 2, or as early as turn 2 with Ugin's Labyrinth, being able to cast on turn 1. If you Stonebrain a Nadu player and take away their Nadus, they just can't win the game. Same thing with any card, any deck that has a named card, right? Like you still bring Living End, like they did a scoop, right? Like they don't have Living End, they're not going to be able to win. And then World Breaker here is also for the control matchups is going to be my guess. Being able to have a creature you can continuously rebuy, you can sacrifice a land to bring it back from your graveyard, and then whenever you cast it, you get to exile your artifact, enchantment, or land. So you get to remove one ring, so you get to remove lands, just let your opponent down, just things like that. Just the biggest thing this deck kind of struggles against is the control matchup as a whole. That being said, I've watched many people play this deck and just smash through control as well. But like any of the mid-range grindier matchups, see where they're interacting with you a lot. World Breakers is great. Same thing with Thought-Knots here. Just something to slow them down, take their step off, and make you continuously put pressure on. It has been amazing with this deck. But if you guys are getting prepped for RCQ season, this is definitely something you guys are going to see. This is definitely a deck that has been putting up numbers and doing well. I expect to see this a bunch. I honestly think I'm going to probably buy into this deck myself. It's a lot of fun. I've played a little bit of Magic Online, kind of blasted with it, and watching my friend play it, and just basically coast to a 5-0 start without trying was amazing to watch. This deck is great. It's really fun, and it kind of just showcases and takes all the raw power we have from all these colorless spells essentially, and just puts them into a great little shell that is killing your opponent as early as turn 3 essentially. As always, guys, if you like what I'm doing, you like what you're seeing, give me a like on the video, leave a comment, any concerns, anything you want to see me do better, or anything like that, or anything you might want me to showcase. And as always, I will be here showcasing the greatest decks that we have running around Modern, getting ready for the RCQ season, and I'll catch you guys next time.